The Richardson family murder is one of the most shocking and chilling criminal cases in Canadian history, lingering in the minds of many even decades later. In 1952, on a dark night, the members of the Richardson family were brutally murdered in their home in a quiet neighborhood in Canada. What makes this case even more complex and mysterious is not just the savage nature of the murders, but the unfathomable motive behind them. Was the killer really who they seemed to be? Or is there a darker, more twisted truth behind this tragedy? The secrets behind this family massacre still puzzle many and have remained an unsolved mystery in criminal history. Jasmine and Jeremy's story began at a punk concert where they met for the first time. Before this meeting, Jasmine was a normal social girl any parent would be proud of, but everything changed as soon as Jeremy entered her life. Jeremy was the kind of person who constantly wanted to project a bad boy image with his behavior and style. This lifestyle was completely different from Jasmine's simple and healthy personality, but it seems this very difference is what made Jasmine completely fascinated with Jeremy. There was a very strange point in the middle of all this. Jeremy was 11 years older than Jasmine. This age gap was enough to raise her family's concerns, but it wasn't the only problem. Jeremy's strange lifestyle was also something Jasmine's family didn't approve of. It was these conflicts and differences that led the relationship down the path to a real tragedy. When Jeremy introduced Jasmine to his friends, a new world seemed to open up for her. Jasmine, who used to be an ordinary, normal girl, suddenly entered the goth lifestyle. Her clothes became completely black, and the styles she saw on websites like whiff.com became her inspiration. In short, her style and behavior completely changed. She was no longer the innocent and social girl she once was. It was as if the gothic life was a kind of freedom and rebellion against everything, especially her family. On the other hand, Jasmine's family was a healthy and exemplary family. Everything was organized and in its place. But when you compare them, Jeremy's family was the exact opposite. Not only was their life not particularly orderly, but they didn't seem to care about it either. These differences seemed to fuel the fire of Jeremy and Jasmine's relationship, and the story slowly slid toward a real tragedy. Jeremy grew up in a very difficult and unhealthy environment from childhood. His mother was an alcoholic and never played the role of a real parent for him. On the other hand, sexual abuse from his parents turned his childhood into a nightmare. When he was a little older and went to school, things got even worse. His classmates constantly mocked and bullied him. It was as if there was nowhere Jeremy could breathe a sigh of relief or feel safe. All this pressure severely damaged Jeremy's mental state, to the point that when he met Jasmine, he had decided to end his life. Because of all the abuse and hardships Jeremy had endured in life, it was natural for him to have some strange behaviors. For example, during his teenage years, he had a small bottle full of human blood and claimed to be a 300-year-old werewolf. Jasmine and Jeremy's relationship was very close. They watched movies together, listened to music, and practically did everything they could together. But the main problem began when Jasmine's family found out Jeremy was 11 years older than their daughter. Jasmine's family quickly took action and tried to separate the two, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Jasmine and Jeremy were stuck together like two magnets, and it seemed nothing could stop the relationship. When Jasmine's family became stricter and tried to make her understand that Jeremy was not a suitable person for a friend, the situation became very critical. Jasmine, who thought her love for Jeremy was beyond everything else, got into serious fights with her family and would eventually seek refuge in Jeremy's arms. Jasmine was completely sure that she was in love with Jeremy, and Jeremy played the role of a perfect lover very well. He constantly showed Jasmine that the only important person in his life was no one but her. On the other hand, Jeremy wrote these horrible sentences about Jasmine's family on his blog. "I will slit their throats and take them. Finally, silence will reign everywhere. They will pay the price with their blood." Meanwhile, Jasmine, who was only 12 years old, took an increasingly aggressive stance against her own family, as if they no longer mattered to her. The Richardsons really didn't know what to do. The more they tried, the more Jasmine was drawn to Jeremy, and that's when the tragedy slowly began. Jasmine decided to devise a ridiculous and horrible plan. In one of the emails she sent to Jeremy, she wrote, "I'll kill them, then I can live with you without any trouble." Jeremy replied, "I love your plans, but we have to be a little more creative with the details." This simple conversation laid the foundation for a bloody plan. A plan that slowly took shape and turned into a real tragedy. On April 22, 2006, Jasmine and Jeremy were watching a movie together. The 1994 film, Natural Born Killers. The movie tells the story of a couple of serial killers who have no mercy on their way. In short, it was a movie that Jasmine and Jeremy were very attracted to. Maybe it would have been better if they had never watched that movie. That same night after watching the movie, Jasmine and Jeremy began to meticulously plan what would change the history of Medicine Hat forever the next day. On April 23, 2006, Tyler Richardson, Jasmine's 8-year-old brother, was waiting for his friend to come over and play with him. But when his friend knocked on the door, no one answered. The door was open, so his friend entered the house and called out to Tyler loudly. But what he didn't expect was a horrible sight. Tyler's friend, still a child, was faced with a scene that made him run home in fear to his mother. He could only scream. He couldn't say anything. Tyler's friend's mother quickly called the police, and the police entered the scene. When the police arrived at the Richardson family's house, they had no idea what kind of situation they were going to face. Tyler's friend's mother had not said anything, so the police entered the house cautiously. They first knocked on the door, but no one answered. After entering from behind the house through the basement, they could see someone lying on the ground. That was enough for the police to realize that the situation was not normal at all. When the police entered the house, they were faced with a horrible scene. Mark and Deborah, Jasmine's parents, were both lying on the ground. The police searched the house from top to bottom, but what shocked everyone was that when they went to 8-year-old Tyler's bedroom, they found out that he had also been murdered. The police were trying to find Jasmine and give the sad news to the only survivor of the Richardson family. But at that moment, the police didn't even think for a second that the Richardson family had been murdered by their only daughter, Jasmine. It took one night, and when the police put the evidence together, they slowly came to a conclusion, and Jasmine became the first suspect in the case. This case was one of the most tragic cases the Medicine Hat police had ever faced. It seemed that Deborah, the mother, was the first victim. She was murdered with 12 stab wounds in different parts of her body. Mark, the father, was the second person to be killed. It seemed that Mark had tried to fight the killer but had failed. There were scratches and wounds on his body that showed he was trying to defend himself. Both the mother and father were killed with multiple stab wounds and were truly drowned in their own pool of blood. But what made these murders even more horrible was the murder of Tyler, the 8-year-old son. Tyler was brutally killed without any defense and without any chance of escape. These murders were truly heartbreaking, and no one believed that such a tragedy could happen at the hands of one of their own family members. Tyler was sleeping in his bed at the time of the murder. It seemed that whoever killed Tyler had not tried to kill him quickly. The killer first attacked Tyler's neck with a knife and slit it. This caused Tyler not to die immediately and to struggle intensely until the moment of his death. When the police entered Tyler's room, they were faced with a very horrible scene. It seemed that Tyler had tried to get to the corners and walls of the room to get a chance to breathe, but unfortunately, these efforts were in vain and led to his death. By examining the emails, the police realized that Jasmine had mentioned a person named Jeremy in her life, and they expanded their investigation. Finally, with careful follow-ups, they were able to find the trace of Jeremy's computer and identify him. As the investigation continued, Jeremy and Jasmine were arrested. The police talked to Jasmine and Jeremy intensely, and in the end, Jeremy confessed. He explained that he carried out the murders in a specific way, just like a hunter who kills fish. According to Jeremy, the Richardson family was like fish that had to be killed. These confessions made the nature of this complex and horrible case clear. In the end, Jasmine also had to confess. The Richardson family murder case became one of the biggest news stories, and all newspapers and websites wrote about it. Jeremy's name was fully mentioned in all news agencies, but Jasmine's identity was kept secret from the media until she turned 18 and reached the legal age, and was only written as JR. Since Jasmine was 12 years old, she was only sentenced to 10 years in prison and was punished as a person who had killed 3 people. But Jeremy, as the killer of 3 people, was only sentenced to 25 years in prison because he was under the influence of drugs at the time of the crime. Many people considered this sentence unfair, and there are still many questions about why the punishments were so light. Jasmine and Jeremy got married in prison and always corresponded with each other. Jasmine was released from prison in 2011, but Jeremy is still in prison. Jasmine is still in love with him and is waiting for the day Jeremy is released from prison. Of course, it seems that after all these years, they may have become a little wiser and may be together again in 2031. This story really has a lot of questions that have not yet been answered.